Meet hockey's toughest NHL player of all time. Gordie Howe, properly known as Mr. Hockey, is undoubtedly one of the greatest NHL players of all time, if not the best. 6 Hart Memorial trophies, 4 Stanley Cup championships, and a Hall of Fame introduction. Gordie Howe attained the peak of his career in 3 decades. But unlike your usual success story, Gordie Howe's NHL career was filled with ups and downs. Alas, he had to survive a fractured skull at one point in his career. This is the story of the toughest player in NHL history. Chapter 1, Gordie Howe's childhood. To think of one of the greatest players in hockey history was a slope-shouldered kid from Saskatoon. Beyond debate, Gordy was more than just a hockey legend. He was a man admired for his courage, humility, and unshakable decency. But long before he became Mr. Hockey, Gordy was just another hungry kid from the Canadian prairies. It was that tough, unforgiving childhood that shaped him into the athlete and the man he would become. Born on March 31st, 1928, in the tiny town of Floral, Saskatchewan, Gordy came from humble beginnings. One of 9 children born to Abe and Catherine Howe, Gordy grew up in poverty, where struggle was a way of life. However, Gordie Howe's journey began with a pair of second-hand skates. He was just 4. A desperate neighbor, hoping to feed her baby, knocked on the Howe family's door with a sack of odds and ends to sell. Gordy's mother, with barely enough to get by, handed over her milk money, just $1.50, when they dumped the contents of the sack on the floor. A pair of skates tumbled out. He shuffled out to the frozen ground, awkwardly skating on 1 foot. Now Gordy grew up skating for miles on frozen roads and gullies around his home. Hard times meant he had to wear discarded equipment, pulled from the trash and stitched back together, right down to his jockey strap. But whenever he stepped onto the ice, he felt like $1 million. The Great Depression taught Gordy self-reliance early on. He trapped gophers for a penny a tail, delivered groceries, caddied at a golf course, and sold fish for 5 to 10 cents to a local restaurant. It was only a matter of time before his story changed for good. Chapter 2, the rookie season. By the age of 15, Gordie Howe was already making waves as a standout athlete at King George School, standing 6 feet tall and weighing 200 pounds. But off the ice, things weren't so easy. Struggling with undiagnosed dyslexia, Gordy wasn't much of a student, and some kids cruelly called him doughhead. Yet, none of that stopped him from practicing his penmanship. He knew one day people would want his autograph, and he wanted to make sure it was neat and legible. High school was never in the cards for Gordy. Instead, he found work in a defense plant. Then in September 1945, he got the call he had been dreaming of and an invitation to the Detroit Red Wings training camp. With World War II coming to an end, the housing shortage left him bunking in Olympia Stadium, where he spent his nights killing rats with his hockey stick. After scoring twice in an exhibition game in Akron, Ohio, Gordy signed his first professional contract, playing for the Wings farm team in Omaha. He netted 22 goals and saved $1,700 of his $2,700 salary. By the following month, Gordy was back at training camp with a parent club. When he found out he was staying with the Red Wings, he nervously approached General Manager Jack Adams about an unsettled matter, a $17 jacket Adams had promised. Busy with more important things, Adams didn't want to lose his young star over a jacket. He sent Gordy to a downtown store to pick it up on the team's tab. On October 16, 1946, Gordie Howe made his NHL debut in the season opener against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Adams put the rookie on the line with Sid Howe and Adam Brown that night. Turk Broda stood between the pipes of Toronto. In the second period, Gordy scored the first of his 801 regular season goals against him. As the puck hit the net, Gordy thought to himself, "I'm in the record books." At this time, Gordy's goal was clear: to stay with the Red Wings. His two-way contract meant that being sent down to the minors would cut his salary from $7,500 to $3,500, a strong incentive to perform. But earning his time on the ice wasn't easy. It took 9 games to score his second goal and another 11 games to net his third. But Gordy wasn't one to give up. The legend was just beginning. Chapter 3, the rise to stardom. The following season, Howe made his NHL debut and was able to secure a goal in his very first game. He also lost 2 teeth to an elbow in that game. Gordie Howe's rookie season of the NHL wrapped up with 7 goals, 15 assists, and a total of 22 points. But the playoffs told a different story. He went goalless in 5 games he played. However, it wasn't his stats that made headlines that year. It was a near riot he sparked at Olympia Stadium during a semifinal game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Howe and Gus Mortson of the Leafs ignited a brawl in the penalty box, a box shared by players from both teams back then. Things quickly escalated as fans got involved. Chaos broke out, and the fight spilled into the aisles. It wasn't until the police intervened that order was restored, though not before a fan threw a chair at Mortson. After the 1946-47 season, changes came to the Red Wings. Jack Adams stepped down as head coach after 21 seasons, making way for Tommy Ivan. Ivan had coached Howe in Omaha and now took his place behind Detroit's bench, ready to guide his young star into the next chapter of his career. Despite the rough start, Howe's determination drove him to the peak of his career. In the following season, he made a massive improvement, amassing 41 goals and 43 assists. His skill quickly earned him the respect of his peers and fans. Now, Howe's impact on the ice was undeniable. His physical style of play, combined with his scoring ability, made him a formidable force. However, his career wasn't without its downside. In the 1950 playoffs, he suffered a devastating injury that almost ended his career. During a game with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Howe collided headfirst into the boards, suffering a fractured skull, broken nose, and facial injuries. The severity of the injury required life-saving surgery and left many questions whether he would return to hockey. Fortunately, he returned the next season, continuing to dominate the game and cementing his reputation as one of the toughest players in history. In the early 1970s, Howe faced another big career moment. At age 45, many thought his playing days were over. But he shocked the hockey world by joining the World Hockey Association with the Houston Aeros. The move was driven by his desire to play alongside his two sons, Mark and Marty Howe. This decision was met with skepticism, but Howe defied expectations. He led the Aeros to 2 WHA championships and was named league MVP in 1974, proving that age was no barrier to his extraordinary skill and determination. After the WHA-NHL merger in 1979, Howe returned to the NHL with the Hartford Whalers. At the age of 52, he became the oldest player to ever compete in an NHL game. On April 7, 1980, Gordie Howe skated off the ice for the final time, marking the end of a legendary career. During his incredible career, Howe earned numerous awards that highlighted his immense impact on hockey. He won the Hart Memorial Trophy 6 times, showing he was the league's most valuable player. With 6 Art Ross trophies, he proved himself as a top scorer. His 4 Stanley Cup victories with the Detroit Red Wings demonstrated his leadership and ability to drive his team to success. Finally, inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1972, Howe's achievements continue to grow. He also won the Ted Lindsay Award and the Lou Marsh Trophy and was selected for many All-Star games. Beyond his awards and stats, Howe's influence was felt throughout the sport. Unfortunately, Howe suffered a stroke in late October 2014 while at his daughter's home in Lubbock, Texas, losing some function on the right side of his body. 2 years later, he was pronounced dead in June when he was 88 years of age. Do you think he is the greatest NHL player to ever live? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section.